Sometimes, strength is not in the clenched fist, but in the open palm that releases what no longer serves its purpose. India's decision to walk away from America is not born out of anger or hostility. It is born out of a deep, unwavering understanding of its own worth. It is a moment where a nation, like a person, chooses dignity over comfort, principle over convenience, and self-respect over familiarity. Walking away is never easy. It means stepping into the unknown with no guarantee of applause and no promise of instant rewards. It means braving the criticism, the speculation, and the whispers of those who cannot see the vision yet. For decades, India's relationship with America has been painted as a symbol of strategic partnership, but beneath the layers of trade agreements and diplomatic smiles, there was always an invisible chain, one that subtly reminded India that it was expected to align, to comply, and to follow. But the true measure of maturity, whether for a human being or a nation, is knowing when the chain, however gilded, is still a chain, and so India chooses to break it. Not with noise, but with grace. Not with hostility, but with the quiet power that comes when you know who you are. This decision is not a retreat. It is a rise. When a nation walks away from a relationship that no longer reflects equality, it sends a silent yet resounding message to the world. We are not here to play a role in someone else's script. We are here to write our own. In life and in geopolitics, there are moments when saying no is the most powerful. Yes, yes to self-reliance, yes to independence, yes to the freedom to choose your own allies based on shared respect rather than historical obligation. India's courage to let go of America in this moment is a reminder that sovereignty is not a privilege granted by others. It is an inheritance earned by struggle, sacrifice, and centuries of resilience. Like a person reclaiming their voice after years of being spoken for, India is no longer seeking validation from the West. It knows that the value of a nation is not measured by who it is aligned with, but by the principles it refuses to compromise. And so the walk away is not a step back, it is a step into the vast, uncharted territory of possibility. It is the leap of faith that says, we trust our own strength enough to stand, even if we must stand alone. For when you carry the weight of your own dignity, you never truly walk alone. The footsteps of history, of culture, of a billion beating hearts walk with you, and that is a power no alliance can grant and no distance can take away. For far too long, the East has been treated like a quiet spectator in the theater of global politics, present but rarely heard, powerful but often underestimated. The great decisions that shaped economies, borders, and futures were too often decided in rooms where the voices of the East were faint echoes, drowned under the confident proclamations of the West. And yet, within this quiet lay a simmering awareness, a truth that could not be silenced forever. The East has its own story to tell, its own destiny to claim. India's shift towards building alliances on equality rather than dependency is more than just a diplomatic change. It is a redefinition of how the nation sees itself and how it wishes to be seen by the world. For decades, international relations have often been shadowed by an imbalance, where one nation extends its hand not as a partner, but as a patron, and the other is expected to accept that hand with silent gratitude. Dependency, even when wrapped in the language of friendship, carries with it an invisible weight. It limits the freedom to choose, to dissent, and to stand firm when principles are at stake. By turning its focus towards Russia, China, and other nations on terms of mutual respect, India is not simply replacing one dominant ally with another. That would only be exchanging one form of dependency for a different one. Instead, India is carefully crafting partnerships where the foundation is not charity but shared benefit, where dialogue replaces dictates and negotiation replaces orders. This is not about seeking protection under another's shadow. It is about standing in the light, shoulder to shoulder, with those who see you as an equal. True equality in alliances is not about sameness in power, but sameness in respect. It is about ensuring that no partner feels superior and no partner feels lesser. India understands that in this new world order, strength will come from cooperation that values each nation's sovereignty. This is why its new relationships are being shaped with a clear understanding. Respect is non negotiable, and equality is the cornerstone. It is easy to accept help when it comes with no strings attached. But history has shown that in global politics, help often comes at a cost. India's move is a conscious choice to avoid the trap of hidden obligations that can shape policies and limit independence. By seeking alliances where both sides contribute and both sides gain, India is building a future where partnerships are not cages but bridges. Bridges that connect cultures, economies, and visions without erasing the identity of either side. This shift is also a message to the world's smaller nations. It is possible to engage with global powers without surrendering your voice. It is possible to work together without losing yourself in the process. India is showing that dignity and diplomacy can walk hand in hand, that one does not have to kneel to collaborate. In this era, the most powerful alliances will not be those based on fear or dependence, but those born of mutual understanding. And as India steps into this new chapter, it does so not as a seeker of shelter, but as a giver and receiver of respect. A nation that knows equality is not just a goal in global politics. It is the only foundation strong enough to hold the weight of lasting friendship. One nation's courage can indeed shift the tides of the world, and India's decision to step away from America is proving that truth in real time. This is not a mere policy adjustment, it is a symbolic act that ripples far beyond trade agreements and diplomatic cables. In global politics, perception shapes reality, and perception is shaped by acts of courage. India's stand is sending a message that reverberates in every capital. From the largest economies to the smallest island's sovereignty is not a luxury. It is the heartbeat of a free nation, and it cannot be purchased, borrowed, or negotiated away. The power of this move lies in its ripple effect. When one nation breaks free from a dynamic of dependency, others watch closely. Some watch in admiration, some in apprehension, and some in quiet inspiration. For those nations who have felt trapped between global powers, India's decision serves as living proof that it is possible to make choices that honor one's own interests, even when those choices risk displeasing the most powerful players on the stage. It is a reminder that alliances should be tools for progress, not chains of obligation. The ripple is not confined to diplomacy alone. Economies will shift as trade routes are redefined and markets adapt to new flows of goods, resources, and technology. Cultural exchanges will expand in unexpected directions, creating a more diversified and interconnected world that no longer relies solely on Western approval or participation. The world's political map is being redrawn, not in terms of borders, but in terms of influence. India's act of stepping away is also dismantling an old narrative, the one that said smaller or developing nations must always align themselves with a singular dominant power for survival. Instead, it is carving out a space for a new story, one in which resilience and independence are not just possible, but powerful. The echo of this message is loudest in regions that have long been told they must choose between East and West. India's choice says, You do not have to choose. You can stand as your own center of gravity. You can create your own axis of alliances. And just as ripples in water eventually touch every shore, this act will find its way into the decisions of other nations. Some will find courage where they once felt fear. Some will find alternatives where they once saw none. Some will finally find their voice after years of speaking in whispers. That is the quiet power of a bold decision. It does not just change the course for the one who makes it, it shifts the horizon for everyone watching. India's courage is not about walking away from something, it is about walking towards a future where no nation has to trade its independence for its survival, and that vision, once seen, cannot be unseen. No longer will power rest in the hands of just one or two nations. That era is fading like the last light of a setting sun. The birth of a multipolar world is not simply a geopolitical shift, it is a philosophical awakening. It is the realization that the future cannot be defined by a single narrative, a single culture, or a single power structure. It must be a tapestry woven with many threads, each unique in color and texture, yet strong in unity. India's decision to step away from the shadow of America is one of those defining moments that signals the arrival of this new world. In the unipolar and bipolar systems of the past, influence was concentrated in the hands of a few. The rest of the world was left to adapt, compromise, and conform to the rules set by distant powers. But now a shift is underway. Nations are no longer satisfied with being mere participants in someone else's story. They are claiming the pen to write their own chapters. This is not about chaos or division. It is about balance. Just as an ecosystem thrives when no single species dominates, the world will thrive when no single power dictates the course of all others. India's move is more than a political choice. It is a declaration that the voices of Asia, Africa, Latin America, and beyond will no longer be footnotes in global policy. By building alliances with multiple nations, each with its own culture, resources, and vision, India is helping to form a world order where diversity of power is not a threat but a strength. The multipolar world promises a new kind of diplomacy. It is not built on fear, where smaller nations must pledge loyalty to survive, but on cooperation, where every nation is both a contributor and a beneficiary. In such a system, competition still exists, but it is tempered by the recognition that collaboration yields greater rewards than domination. This is the world India is envisioning, a table where all have a seat, not just the chosen few. This change will not happen overnight. It will face resistance from those who have grown comfortable in their position of control. But the momentum is undeniable. Just as rivers carve valleys over centuries, small yet steady shifts in alliances and policies will reshape the landscape of global power. And when that landscape changes, so too will the mindset of nations and leaders. India's choice is a spark, and in the hands of others, it will become a flame that lights the way to a world where no single nation's will is absolute. In this dawn of multipolarity, power is not hoarded, it is shared. And perhaps, for the first time in modern history, the world can move forward not as a hierarchy, but as a chorus. Many voices, many visions, harmonizing without losing their individuality. India is no longer content to simply respond to the currents of global politics. It is now shaping those currents. For decades, its role was often framed as that of a bridge, a link between East and West, a mediator, a facilitator. While that role carried dignity, it also carried limitations. Bridges are pathways for others, not destinations themselves. Now, India is stepping into a new identity, not as a passive connector, but as an architect of the future, a pillar in the foundation of a new global order. This transformation is not sudden, it is the result of decades of growth, struggle, and quiet preparation. Economically, India has risen to become one of the world's largest markets, not because it waited for opportunities to be handed to it, but because it learned to create opportunities in the face of adversity. Politically, it has engaged with a variety of partners without becoming beholden to any single one. Militarily, it has strengthened its capabilities to ensure that its sovereignty is never negotiable. All of these developments have been building towards this moment, a moment where India's voice is not just present in the conversation, but decisive in its direction. To be a global shaper requires more than ambition, it requires vision. And India's vision is clear: a world where influence is shared, respect is mutual, and progress is measured not by the dominance of a few, but by the well-being of many. In international forums, India no longer waits for its turn to speak. It speaks with the confidence of a nation that knows it has earned the right to be heard. Its initiatives in trade, technology, climate action, and security are no longer reactive, they are proactive, setting the agenda rather than merely following it. This new role also means carrying responsibility. A pillar must be strong enough to bear weight, and India is stepping into that responsibility willingly. It is offering not just economic partnerships, but also cultural leadership, scientific innovation, and humanitarian engagement. It is showing that leadership is not about imposing one's will, but about creating a space where all voices can contribute to a shared vision. The world is beginning to adjust to this reality. Allies and rivals alike are recognizing that India cannot be overlooked, underestimated, or treated as a secondary player. Its influence is shaping trade routes, defense strategies, and diplomatic alignments. The decisions it makes ripple far beyond its borders, influencing the choices of nations thousands of miles away. India's journey from silent participant to global shaper is a testament to the power of resilience and patience. It proves that you do not have to shout to be heard. You have to act consistently and with conviction. And now, as it stands firmly as one of the architects of a new world order, India is not just holding a seat at the table, it is helping design the